Okay, so welcome back. In the last video we did the doors and the windows. This video is going to be getting the flooring in. So I've got some 22mm chipboard flooring to go down. That is going to sit on some 2x6 rafters, which in turn are going to be fixed to the base by joist hangers, which I already fitted when I built the base. And then under the flooring there's going to be about 70mm, well, there's going to be 70mm of king span insulation. So this video is going to be the joists, the floor joist being fitted, the insulation going in, and the chipboard flooring on top of that. And then we've got a workable space to go with. So let's see how it goes. So having just done it initially planned to put one screw in each corner and walked up and down on it a couple of times, I've decided to just put screws in each of the screw points. It seems to just hold it a lot firmer, and for the sake of another couple of dozen screws in 5 minutes, what's the harm? So now they're secured in on that side and they're nice and firm. There's only one rattly point where one of the joist hangers is slightly loose in the concrete block, but that's not terrible. So onto the other side. So at the back where the floorboard meets the wall, I kind of felt like the gap was a little bit big, too much of an overhang there, and whilst the board is going to add some pretty reasonable sort of rigidity, I thought it'd be better to put some more noggins in, which will go in this on these joist hangers here, although it might take some malleting in. I cut them before putting those in, bit of a schoolboy error, and the same at the front here. Now because this gap's a little bit bigger, we're going to have these bits in here. I've put these in for where one board is going to come up to this line here, and where another board meets it, because that's quite a big space to have unsupported there. So I'm just going to bang them in and attach them to the joists, and then that's the structure complete really. We can move on to the insulation. So I've got 3 big boards of this Celotex, which is 75 meters, 75 millimeters thick, foil backed on both sides. The question is now, I just need to cut it down to shape, down to size, to fit in between the joists. So it might end up being a little bit cumbersome. So I've got a couple of different options of which saw to try, which we'll see if we can get it marked up, and then see if we can wedge it in. The plan is to wedge it in fairly tightly, so it should just sit there quite firmly of its own accord. However, I've hammered in a couple of pins on each board just to stop it from falling out, essentially. It's going to have some tape on the top at points, and it should just be held in place by friction. But you know, over the course of 5 or 10 years or something, if there is any movement in these joists over time, I don't want it just dropping out and then having to faff around taking the floor back up. So for the sake of what took me about 10 minutes, I'll just bang some soffit pins in, or whatever they're called, just in to each board at the correct depth, each joist at the correct depth, to stop it from falling through. So let's see how it goes. Right, so that's all of the insulation down in the floor. so I just need to sweep it out now, and then the plan is I'll bang some expanding foam in the gaps where either my cuts aren't great or I've just somehow left a gap. I'll let that set overnight, and then I'll cut it tomorrow, and I can bang some tape on the joints to make it fairly airtight. However, I have got space for a floor vent, so the air is going to vent through the base into the floor, this underfloor space, come up through the floor vent, and then out through a vent high up in the just below the roof space. The roof space is ventilated separately, and I've made the decision to do that because I don't have any trickle vents in the windows. So if you know, on a cold evening, if you've got a couple of people in here, you know, having a drink or whatever, that humidity is just going to build up, and so I figured having the option for closable vents, adjustable vents that can be closed in the floor and high up in the walls, or opened as necessary, should allow a bit of air circulation as required, stop any humidity build-up, and stop any damp getting through the walls. I may well talk about vapor control layers later on in the video, or in the next video, depending on how we get on, and what my thoughts are around the necessity for them from the research that I've done. So, time to sweep up, bang some foam in, and then definitely time for a cup of tea. All right. Right, so got the insulation board down, got the gaps foamed and taped up. I'm comfortable that's going to be sufficient to keep it appropriately warm. There's 75mm of insulation, and there's going to be 22mm of the floorboarding, then on top of that underlay, and then either a laminate or engineered wood floor. So I'm fairly comfortable that that's going to do the job. It doesn't need to be to sort of completely airtight passive house standards. I've seen some people use the foil tape along the top of the floor joists, but from what I understand, you need an air gap on top of that for that to offer any insulation value, so I've not bothered wasting the tape on that. So next step, start dragging the boards in and get them fixed down. Here we go. Right, so I've got my first board positioned. I've cut it down so it sits, the end of it sits on this joist. So both that one and the next one will be supported by the floor joists. Need to have at least a 10mm gap, expansion gap at each end. So I'm just using these offcuts of bits of soffit that are 10mm. Do the job nicely. It's important that you make sure it's square. It's marked up, or it should be marked up, as to which side goes up, so you've got it the correct way up, and then I just need to cut down the next board here down to size. I will check that fits, and then we'll look at gluing and screwing. Right, so to show you how I've done that, I've put a bead of the adhesive along each joist where the board's going to sit, and along the tongue of the board where it's going to fit into the other one. And it's this stuff Caberfix, which is specifically for flooring boards. And then once I've done that and the board's in place, and then we're going to pop screws in to every joist, probably just under 300mm gaps, so it's nice and firmly fixed to the joist and to the board that it's adjoining.